Hello everyone, it's me Mary or Hawk. Welcome back to another video. This is going to be a bit of a personal story and ramble about my Mirtazapine and Abilify situation, but before we begin, I'd like to give some disclaimers. This is not medical advice, this is just my personal experience and for documentary purposes only for those who may also be struggling from bad symptoms from these medications. And also, if you feel like you're having negative side effects from a medication, if you feel like you're having the symptoms that I've experienced from these medications, consult your doctor, consult your psychiatrist, consult the person who prescribed you it or that you see that currently prescribes that for you, and talk to them about your symptoms. And be prepared. Bring the medication pamphlets. Screenshot the medication pamphlet websites if you did not keep the medication pamphlets that come with your prescription. You can also look up places like the NHS, drug checker to see if there's any contraindications, that type of thing. You can look those up and be prepared with screenshots from official, verifiable, very reputable sources about these meds, such as the NHS or the medication pamphlet websites or the medication pamphlet physically. You can highlight the sections that, talk about the symptoms that you're experiencing, because believe it or not, you can go years without knowing what you're experiencing is from a medication. So again, consult your psychiatrist. If you feel the need that you need to taper because of negative symptoms, be prepared with the evidence, and also be prepared to, have to convince them. I didn't have to do that much convincing work, thankfully, but, a lot of people have that experience, so be prepared with the evidence in case they don't listen at first. And also, if you hear background noise, I have a desktop water fountain right there. I live right next to some train tracks. My upstairs neighbors, their toddlers' room is directly above mine, and I cannot control my upstairs neighbors' toddlers, nor can I control toddlers. And also, I live in an apartment with other people, like my family. I can't really silence them that well. So you just have to deal with background noise or find another channel if that bothers you. Also, be respectful to each other. Don't shame other people for having to be on meds. This is not to shame anyone who's on meds. I understand the importance of psychiatric and other sorts of medications. I understand the importance. They do absolutely have a time and place. And, this is not a place to shame people for taking things that are helping them. This is more to share my experience of something that I thought was helping me that turns out was causing a whole hell of a lot of health issues for me, more than I really realized at first. And the medications, if I didn't mention earlier, that I'm going to be talking about for the most part are Mirtazapine and Abilify, with an aside of Lexapro. I'm not currently on that. I haven't been on that for over a year and a half, but when I was on it, I was on 30 milligrams, and that's 10 milligrams higher than the maximum healthy adult dose. I was on that amount for over a year. I had serotonin syndrome. It wasn't fun. Tapering off that was hellish, and the withdrawals lasted over 10 months to a year. I couldn't work during that time because I was having withdrawals, even months after having completely discontinued the medication. That is some of the background, but if you're really curious about the dosages of Abilify and Mirtazapine, by the way, it's 15 milligrams Mirtazapine and 5 milligrams Abilify. So let's get into this conversation, because I've mentioned a few times on this channel, the need to taper off these two meds, because they're causing me a whole host of really bad symptoms. And by really bad symptoms, the Abilify is causing me to have extreme hyperglycemia symptoms, as well as the impulsivity control issues that are listed in the medication pamphlets. I literally had every single last one of the hyperglycemia symptoms, which is really concerning for someone like me with a family history of type 2 diabetes, and also high cholesterol, both sides, but especially my mom's. Likewise, it wasn't fun having the binge eating issues or the weight gain issues or the shopping, impulsive shopping issues that I had. Yeah, that wasn't fun, and it turns out those were caused by my meds. Yes, Abilify can do that, and it is not helped by Mirtazapine, which is an appetite stimulant. As you can imagine, not a good combo for someone like me who has a family history of type 2 diabetes and thus a natural predisposition. Likewise, Mirtazapine was causing me dysglycemia, so on top of the hyperglycemia, I was experiencing bouts of hypoglycemia and not quite knowing what the hell was going on with me for years, and you'll understand why in a moment. It's interesting because the medication pamphlets for Mirtazapine don't mention that it causes dysglycemia, but the NHS in the UK, which is the same medicine over there in the UK as far as I know, they list that, it can cause dysglycemia. They don't say the words dysglycemia, but in so many words, they basically said that it causes sugar stabilization issues, which for me manifested in dysglycemia. Likewise, I always felt really dizzy and also sleepy all the time. That's the symptoms I was experiencing, and for a while, I brushed them off. Like, for years, I brushed them off because, you know, I was dealing with a lot of stress, serotonin syndrome, like, I thought maybe it's that, you know, and maybe it's just my comfort food habits. Maybe it's just my, you know, I grew up and I'm still, like, poor at this point. Like, that's just the reality of my, where I am, like, economically speaking currently. But, you know, especially when I was growing up, before I had a job, you know, like, I would spend my money when I got it because I'd be researching things I wanted to get for months, and I'd spend, and I thought, oh, this is just influence from my childhood, maladaptive habits, you know, maybe it's just that, maladaptive coping skills. That's what I thought, until I started eating healthier, and then I realized, that's weird. My appetite's really insatiable. You know, I had some run-ins with, you know, my dad was concerned, my across the hall neighbor was concerned because, you know, both are diabetic, and they noticed a lot of the diabetes symptoms in me. Very concerned, you know, I got checked out by doctors a few times. Blood sugar tests always came back normal. And I was like, oh, that's weird. You know, I remember what it was like with serotonin syndrome. I had to find out myself, hey, this is my meds causing this. Wonder if this is something similar with Abilify and Mirtazapine. And lo and behold, the medication pamphlets, they told all. I mean, please keep your medication pamphlets. I mean it. And if you didn't, please look up the websites, screenshot the bits that are relevant to you, because you would be surprised. And I felt intuitively led to dig into the symptoms and if it was my Mirtazapine and Abilify. And lo and behold, it absolutely was. And I was like, oh no, my meds have been doing this to me for years. I just thought I had some bad habits and vices. Oh no, kind of thing. That's basically what it was. And, you know, also be sure to have supports if you're going to taper. And, you know, tell your work in advance if you need to. I personally did because I work retail, and I'm like, listen, I told my store manager and assistant manager, listen, I'm going to be tapering off 2 meds starting yesterday, basically. Just be warned, if there are any odd behavioral changes in me, it's likely because of the medications that I am coming off of, and not because I'm trying to be a jerk to customers or coworkers. So please bear with me and, like, try to give me some grace if I act a little bit more, you know, irritated these next few weeks or months. I just basically gave him a heads up because I didn't know what to expect. I know from Lexapro I had to taper off for very many months, like at least 6 months of tapering. So, you know, I didn't know what to expect until I went to my psychiatrist yesterday, which I came prepared. By prepared, I mean I came with the symptom list. I came with an extra little thing of, like, things I wanted to say to her. I came with the med pamphlets. I came with the screenshots on my notes app on my phone. Like, I came prepared just in case I had to fight on this, because I was prepared to basically say, I'm tapering, how would you prefer me to do it so I stay compliant and don't have my Vyvanse taken from me? Because, you know, ADHD. So, you know, I went to them yesterday, and I was nervous, but I knew I had to get my health sorted. And I've been on Mirtazapine and Abilify for years. 15 milligrams Mirtazapine, 5 milligrams Abilify. And, you know, again, tapering experience with Lexapro was difficult, and I was very nervous about what might happen. I wasn't sure what to expect. I was expecting to hear, you can only taper off one at a time, it's going to take this many months, then you can taper off the other one. I was like, oh no, I'm not sure how this is going to go down. Like, I didn't know. My last tapering experience wasn't exactly pleasant, so I didn't know what to expect. And here's the thing, I started to get into, like, I guess the Spark Notes version of my symptoms at first, and my psychiatrist was very receptive. I didn't even have to pull out the full symptom list, and she's like, yeah, like, let's help get you off of these, you know, basically what they told me, and please work with your psychiatrist. Don't just go off what my psychiatrist told me. Please work with what your psychiatrist tells you. But, you know, basically my psychiatrist said that I could quit both, like, because they're very low doses. Like, by low doses, the next lowest prescribable dose for both Mirtazapine and Abilify are the lowest prescribable doses. And she's like, you know, while there could be some withdrawals, you could be fine possibly just stopping these both entirely. And if you start to feel any withdrawals, be sure to, like, half the medications that were in your pill bottle, just come in half the pill cutter, and, you know, use that to taper until you feel safe and ready enough to just not be on these meds anymore. So, right now I'm trying out the cold turkey method, which I normally would never advise. I was really surprised that my psychiatrist was just like, yeah, you can stop those just entirely. Like, they can have some withdrawal symptoms, but, you know, you'll most likely be fine. Like, if you start to feel anything, you can half them and taper more slowly, but, like, you're good, basically, is what she said. And I was very surprised for her to just be like, yeah, you can just stop. That's the last thing I expect to hear from a psychiatrist. I was expecting, you're gonna have to taper for that so long, and it's gonna be really difficult, because that's what I had with Lexapro. So, basically, come prepared, and, you know, maybe just come prepared, have your symptoms already written down, and be sure to be in there and give it your best shot, and maybe you won't even have to get into all the symptoms, and it'll be enough to convince your psychiatrist of, hey, I need to taper off these. And, you know, part of what did convince my psychiatrist, I believe, is that I do have weekly therapy sessions, so, you know, I have supports. If anything happens, I can always tell my therapist. And also, like, my therapist works in the same company as my psychiatrist, so, you know, if anything happens, the therapist can just kind of leave a note in the therapy notes basically saying, like, hey, like, she needs to see the psychiatrist further, again, basically, that's what they'll say. So, you know, that's good. And I also do have natural things that do help me significantly with the things I was prescribed Abilify and Mirtazapine for, so that also makes a hell of a difference, because if you have nothing to help you, like, at all, that could help you, they may not let you do what I did. But, you know, she said you can just stop the meds, especially considering you have herbal options and fungi options that seem to help you, and if you're not aware of what they are, Amanita muscaria mushrooms really seem to help me with my stress, my pain, my anxiety, my misophonia, my depression. It really helps me personally with that, and part of what I was prescribed these things for. And, you know, if I have trouble getting to sleep, which is what the Mirtazapine was prescribed for, sleep, I can just have a good indica. It's not going to be that big of a deal. I can just have a good indica, and I'll be to sleep in no time. So, you know, I'm glad that she was willing to listen to me on that, and just let me do what I need to do. And I'll be sure to possibly give updates as to what the tapering things look like, any withdrawals. It's going to be interesting. Hopefully I won't have withdrawals, but this is the first time I've ever had a doctor told me to just go cold turkey off a med. It's very interesting, but apparently it can be done, so, you know, not medical advice. Be sure to get the okay from your psychiatrist or doctor before doing something like that, and if you feel any sort of symptoms, like, track your symptoms, good, bad, or indifferent, throughout the coming weeks and months, just to see if you need to, like, taper instead of just going cold turkey, because obviously for most medications it's incredibly unsafe to stop them entirely. I'm just lucky that my psychiatrist was willing to listen and give input and stuff. So yeah, this has basically been my health check-in. Hopefully it wasn't too TMI for y'all, but basically my points to all you is basically have your med pamphlets ready. Have the sections that pertain to you highlighted. I did. I used a little highlighter on the little sections that, like, the symptoms that pertain to me. Do that. Look up the medication, like, information websites for the respective medications you're on. Highlight the areas that are important to you, like, on the screenshot, and put that in your notes app. Put in your notes app what symptoms you're experiencing, the severity, how often, what it's like. Because, you know, you never know with some doctors. Sometimes you need to pull out the big guns. I didn't have to, but some people do. So with that being said, thank you for watching. This is Hawk or Mary signing out. Stay magical.